What if I told you the most dangerous trap ever built in America wasn't a prison, it wasn't a labor camp, it was a cul-de-sac, a quiet street, a trimmed lawn, a 2-car garage, a mailbox with your family name painted on the side in neat little letters. It looks like freedom, doesn't it? It looks like the whole point of being alive. You work hard, you save up, you buy the house, you move in, and you've made it. That's the story they sold your grandparents. That's the story they sold your parents. And that's the story they sold you. But here's the thing about a good con. The best ones don't feel like a con at all. The best ones feel like a dream come true. And the American suburb, that sprawling, perfectly planned, strangely identical landscape stretching from coast to coast, might be the greatest con ever pulled on a free people. Because it wasn't an accident. It wasn't organic. It was designed deliberately, strategically, by people who understood exactly what they were doing. And what they were doing was building a world where you would need to buy your way through every single day of your life. A world where walking to the store would be impossible, where knowing your neighbor would be unlikely, where your entire existence would revolve around a mortgage payment, a car payment, an insurance payment, and the quiet, creeping feeling that something about all of this is deeply, fundamentally wrong. That splinter in your mind, that low hum of anxiety you feel on Sunday nights, that sense that you're running on a treadmill bolted to the floor. It's not in your head, it's in your zip code. Let me paint you a picture. It's a Wednesday morning, 6:45. Your alarm goes off in a house that sits on a street that looks exactly like every other street in a 4-mile radius. You get up, you shower, you get dressed, you pour coffee into a travel mug because you won't have time to drink it sitting down. You get in your car because there is no other way to get anywhere. There's no bus, there's no train, there's not even a sidewalk that leads anywhere useful. You pull out of your driveway, you merge onto a 4-lane road, and you join a river of other people doing the exact same thing. Tens of thousands of them, all driving alone, all heading somewhere else. Because the place where you live was never designed for living. It was designed for sleeping, for storing your body between shifts. The grocery store is 4 miles away. Your kid's school is 6 miles in the other direction. Your office is 22 miles from your front door. And every single one of those trips requires a car, requires gas, requires insurance, requires maintenance, requires time, and quietly, relentlessly requires money. You didn't choose this. You were funneled into it. And to understand how, you've got to go back, way back, to a time when American cities actually worked for the people living in them. Before the suburbs existed, American cities were dense, walkable, alive. In the early 1900s, you could live above a bakery. You could walk to work. Your kids could walk to school. Trolley lines connected neighborhoods to downtown. Corner shops sold everything you needed within a few blocks of your front door. People knew each other. They sat on stoops. They borrowed sugar. They washed each other's kids. This wasn't some romantic fantasy. It was the basic, practical reality of how cities functioned for thousands of years. Human settlements, from ancient Rome to medieval London to 1890s Chicago, were built around one principle: put things close together so people can reach them. It was obvious, it was efficient, and it was dangerous, at least to certain people. Because when you can walk to everything, you don't need to buy much. When your community is tight, you don't need to purchase belonging. When your life is rich with proximity, with corner bars and neighborhood churches and public squares, you're a lousy consumer, and that was a problem. Now let's talk about the 1930s. America is broken. The Great Depression has gutted the economy. Banks are collapsing. Construction has stopped. Millions are out of work. The housing market is dead. Franklin Roosevelt needs a way to restart the engine, and he finds one. In 1934, his administration creates the Federal Housing Administration, the FHA. On the surface, it's a lifeline. The government will insure home loans, making it easier for regular people to buy houses. 30-year mortgages become standard. Down payments shrink. Suddenly, home ownership isn't just for the wealthy. It's for the working man. Sounds great, right? Sounds like democracy in action. But here's what they don't teach you in school. The FHA didn't just make home ownership possible. It made a very specific kind of home ownership possible, and a very specific kind impossible. The FHA had guidelines, underwriting manuals, rules about which properties they would insure and which they wouldn't. And buried in those rules was a blueprint for a new kind of America. The FHA would insure loans for brand new single-family homes on large lots in undeveloped areas away from cities. It would not insure loans for dense housing. It would not insure loans in mixed-use neighborhoods. It would not insure loans in areas with, and I'm quoting the spirit of their own language here, incompatible racial groups. This wasn't just housing policy. This was social engineering on a continental scale. They were drawing a line. On one side, the old city, dense, diverse, walkable, full of life. On the other side, the new suburb, spread out, segregated, car-dependent, full of consumers, and the money, all of it, every penny of government backing went to one side of that line. Then came the 1940s and 50s, and the machine really started humming. World War II ended. 16 million soldiers came home. They needed houses. They needed jobs. And a man named William Levitt had an idea. Levitt had studied wartime manufacturing, assembly lines, standardized parts, mass production. And he thought, why can't we build houses the same way we build bombers? So he bought 4,000 acres of potato farmland on Long Island, New York, and he started building, not one house at a time. 20, 30, 40 houses a day, every house the same floor plan, same materials, same lawn, same distance from the street, same distance from each other. Levittown, 17,000 homes, the first modern suburb, and it sold out almost instantly. Veterans lined up for blocks. They put down almost nothing. The FHA insured the loans. The GI Bill covered the rest. And just like that, tens of thousands of families left the city and moved into a landscape that had never existed before in human history. A landscape with no center, no main street, no town square, no pub, no market, just houses, streets, and the absolute non-negotiable requirement that you own an automobile. Levitt knew exactly what he was building. He once said, and I'm paraphrasing here, that no man who owns his own house and lot can be a communist. He's got too much to do. Think about that for a second. The suburb wasn't just a housing solution. It was a political tool, an ideological weapon. Keep people busy, keep them in debt, keep them maintaining a lawn and fixing a roof and making payments. A person drowning in obligations doesn't have time to organize, doesn't have time to protest, doesn't have time to question the system. They're too busy keeping up with it. And then the highways came. 1956, the Federal Aid Highway Act. President Eisenhower signs a bill authorizing 41,000 miles of interstate highways, the largest public works project in human history at that time. They told you it was for national defense, for moving troops and missiles in case the Soviets attacked. And sure, maybe that was part of it. But the real purpose, the practical day-to-day purpose, was to connect the suburbs to the cities, to make it possible for millions of workers to live 20, 30, 40 miles from their jobs and still get there every morning. The highways didn't just connect places, they destroyed places. They were rammed through the hearts of black and brown neighborhoods. Entire communities were bulldozed. Vibrant, functioning city blocks were demolished to make room for on-ramps and overpasses. In city after city, the pattern was the same. The highway comes through, the neighborhood dies. Property values collapse. The people who can afford to leave, leave. They go to the suburbs, and the people who can't afford to leave are trapped in what's left, cut off, isolated, with a river of concrete roaring through what used to be their home. This is the part where I need you to see the full picture. Because it's not one thing. It's a system. Each piece connects to every other piece, and together they form a cage that most people never even realize they're inside. Start with zoning. In the old city, zoning was mixed. You could have a shop on the ground floor and an apartment above it. A factory could sit 3 blocks from a school. It was messy, sure, but it was human. It was walkable. It was alive. The suburbs killed that. Single-use zoning became the law of the land. Residential here, commercial there. Industrial over there. And none of them anywhere near each other. You want bread? Get in the car. You want to see a doctor? Get in the car. Your kid has soccer practice? Get in the car. Every single errand, every single task, every single human need requires a separate trip in a 2-ton machine that costs you $30, $40, $50,000, plus insurance, plus gas, plus maintenance, plus parking. The average American household now spends more on transportation than on food. Read that again. You spend more money moving yourself from one badly planned location to another than you spend feeding your own body. That is not an accident. That is the architecture of entrapment. And zoning does something else too, something quieter, something almost invisible. It makes housing expensive. When you zone vast areas of a city exclusively for single-family homes on large lots, you artificially restrict the supply of housing. You can't build an apartment building. You can't build a duplex. You can't even, in many places, convert your own garage into a rental unit. The result is scarcity. And scarcity means high prices. And high prices mean bigger mortgages. And bigger mortgages mean longer debt. And longer debt means you are chained for 30 years to a structure that costs you not just the purchase price, but a second house worth of interest payments to a bank. The bank doesn't care if you're happy. The bank cares that you pay every month for 3 decades. And if you stop paying, they take everything. Your house, your credit score, your ability to rent an apartment, your future. That's leverage. That's control. And it's all perfectly legal, perfectly normal, perfectly American. Now, let me tell you about the people who profit from this. Because every trap has a trapper. The real estate industry, the auto industry, the oil industry, the home improvement industry, the insurance industry, the banking industry. These aren't separate entities. They're one interlocking machine, and the suburb is the engine that keeps it running. Think about what you need when you move to a suburb. You need a house, so the developers and realtors get paid. You need a mortgage, so the banks get paid. You need a car, probably two, so the auto manufacturers get paid. You need gas every single day, so the oil companies get paid. You need insurance for the house, for the cars, so the insurers get paid. You need to furnish the house, maintain the house, repair the house, improve the house, so the hardware stores and contractors and appliance companies all get paid. And then, when your kitchen starts looking dated after 10 years, you need to renovate. When the roof leaks, you need to replace it. When the driveway cracks, you need to repave it. The suburban home is not an asset. It's a subscription service, a never-ending, always increasing subscription to a lifestyle you didn't design and can't easily escape. And here's the part that really burns. The people who built this system, the developers and politicians and bankers, they didn't pay for it. You did. Those highways that made the suburbs possible, paid for with your taxes. The FHA loans that subsidized the suburban construction, backed by your government, which means backed by your money. The infrastructure, the water lines, the sewer systems, the electrical grids, the roads that stretch for miles and miles to serve houses that are spread impossibly far apart. All of that costs vastly more per household than the same infrastructure in a dense city. A single mile of suburban road serves a fraction of the people that a single mile of city road serves. But the cost of building and maintaining it is the same, sometimes more. That means suburban infrastructure is, and has always been, subsidized. The dense city neighborhoods that generate the most tax revenue per acre are effectively paying for the sprawling suburbs that generate the least. The people in the apartment building downtown are subsidizing the people in the McMansion 20 miles away. It's a wealth transfer, from the many to the few, hidden in plain sight, wrapped in the flag of the American dream. And the loneliness. God, the loneliness. This is the wound that nobody wants to talk about. Because the suburb doesn't just drain your wallet, it drains your soul. Human beings evolved in tight-knit groups. We lived in villages, in tribes, in dense clusters where you couldn't walk 10 feet without seeing a face you recognized. Our brains are wired for this. We need casual contact, the nod from the shopkeeper, the wave from the neighbor on the stoop, the old man at the corner who knows your name. The suburbs removed all of that. There are no stoops. There are no corners. There are no shopkeepers. There is your house, your yard, your garage, and the inside of your car. The average suburban resident can go days without a meaningful face-to-face interaction with another human being outside their immediate family. And we wonder why anxiety is skyrocketing. We wonder why depression is an epidemic. We wonder why people feel disconnected, rootless, lost. They're not broken. Their environment is broken. You put a social animal in solitary confinement and then act surprised when it starts deteriorating. The suburb is solitary confinement with better furniture. Robert Putnam wrote about this. He tracked the decline of American community life over decades. Bowling leagues, church groups, PTA meetings, civic organizations, all of them collapsing. And one of the strongest predictors of this collapse was commute time. For every 10 minutes of commuting, involvement in community affairs dropped by 10%. Think about that. The architecture of the suburb, the sheer physical distance between everything, is literally dissolving the social fabric. People don't stop joining bowling leagues because they're lazy. They stop because by the time they get home from a 45-minute commute, cook dinner, help with homework, and collapse on the couch, they have nothing left. The suburb doesn't just take your money, it takes your time. And time is the raw material of human connection. So what do? How do you escape a trap that's been 70 years in the making? A trap that's woven into the tax code, the zoning laws, the mortgage system, the highway system, the very physical landscape of the country you live in. First, you see it. That's the hardest part. Because the trap is dressed up as a dream. It's marketed to you from birth. Every sitcom, every commercial, every politician talking about hard-working families. The house with the yard and the picket fence is presented as the default, the natural, the only legitimate way to live. And anything else, renting, living in a city, sharing space, choosing not to own a car, is treated as failure, as temporary, as something you do before you grow up and buy a house. That narrative is a weapon, and the first step is disarming it. Understanding that it was manufactured, that it was designed to serve specific economic interests, that it has nothing to do with your happiness or your freedom. Second, you do the math, not the fake math that a realtor shows you where home ownership always wins. The real math, the total cost of suburban life, the mortgage plus interest, the property taxes, the insurance, the maintenance, the 2 cars, the gas, the time lost to commuting, the health costs of a sedentary, car-dependent lifestyle, the hidden cost of isolation. When you add it all up, honestly, the number is staggering. Many people who own a suburban home are spending 60, 70, even 80% of their income just sustaining the lifestyle that the house demands. They're not building wealth, they're feeding the machine. And they'll do it for 30 years, and at the end, they'll have a paid-off house in a place that's slowly falling apart, and a retirement account that's far thinner than it should be, and a nagging feeling that they spend their best years on a treadmill. Third, you build differently. This doesn't mean everyone has to sell their house tomorrow and move into a studio apartment in Manhattan. It means questioning the assumptions. It means choosing, where possible, to live in places that are built for humans, not for cars, walkable neighborhoods, mixed-use districts, places where you can get a coffee without a 5-mile drive, places where your kids can walk to school, places where you see faces on the sidewalk, where shops and restaurants and parks are woven into the fabric of daily life, not isolated in strip malls behind parking lots. These places still exist. Some cities are rebuilding them. Some towns never lost them. And increasingly, people are seeking them out, not because they read an urban planning textbook, but because something in their gut tells them the suburban deal is rigged. Fourth, and this is the radical one, you decouple your identity from your house. The system works because people believe that home ownership equals success, that the size of your house reflects the size of your life, that your address is your identity. This is the deepest hook, and it's the hardest one to pull out. But when you do, something remarkable happens. You realize that freedom isn't a 30-year mortgage. Freedom is time. Freedom is proximity to the things that make life worth living. Freedom is being able to walk out your front door and be somewhere, not drive out of your garage and be nowhere. The suburbs were sold to us as the American dream, But a dream you can't wake up from is just another word for a coma. The houses are real. The lawns are real. The debt is real. But the freedom, the choice, the autonomy, that was the part they made up. The most radical thing you can do in America today isn't buying a bigger house. It's asking a simple, dangerous question. What if the whole thing was designed not to give you a life, but to keep you too busy and too broke to ever notice you don't have one? That question will cost you nothing to ask, but the answer might change everything.